Hi, everybody. My name is Vera Jones, and thank you, Kate, for allowing me this opportunity to work with David's Refuge. I hope by sharing my story today that you will walk away feeling inspired and motivated to do something that is very difficult. This whole art of caregiving is really like dropping a whole bunch of F-bombs, right? So today I want to coach you, if you will, with some winning strategies for the fouls of caregiving. So let's talk about those F bombs, dropping those F bombs before you judge me and think that I'm talking about, like the ones we use when you cut me off in traffic. I don't use them often, but yeah, occasionally they slip out. I'm not talking about those. They're not Christian. I'm talking about these, and they're not Christian either. Fear, fouls, and failure. What I want you to do is literally drop these and replace them with faith, focus, and fortitude. I want to talk about how you develop these a little bit. The great conundrum of caregiving is really, for me, it's about balancing too much pressure with too little support and too much responsibility with too little rest. I want to take you back to the foundation of how I learned to deal with fouls. It's all about my first love that I developed really at the age of 5. Here I am at the earliest picture I could find at the age of 9, playing basketball. Basketball was my first love, and I had no idea it would do so much for me. I would find out that the purpose of pursuing my passion was to one day put passion back into my purpose. And hopefully you have learned that as well. Basketball, you can see I had a bad hair day back in the 80s. Don't judge me. Some of you had bad hair too. I still have bad hair days on a regular basis. But basketball took me many places and taught me many things. It taught me how to have some great teammates. One of which, not to brag, but at Syracuse University back in the 80s, we had two, not one, but two championship teams in the Big East, went on to a couple of NCAA tournaments. But most importantly, it taught me to surround myself with a diverse community, if you will, of people who knew different things and cared and showed how much they really were playing the same game with you. I have some great teammates even to this day. Basketball taught me how to strategize, how to lead and give back to others. I coached at University of Dayton, Indiana University, as well as Florida Atlantic University. Went overseas and coached in Japan with the Boys and Girls Club, helping out with our military families. So basketball gave me all of these opportunities. And again, I mentioned teamwork, but not just on the court, off the court. Long after I was playing basketball, then I was commentating, had an opportunity to work alongside of my idol, Robin Roberts, who's now with Good Morning America, and have a 30-year broadcasting career. I just retired in 2020 from the Big Ten Network. So again, basketball taught me all of these things. But when asked what was the greatest lesson, I always said it was learning how to play through the foul and how to win. Because life, just like basketball, is loaded with fouls. And just like basketball, life, the closer you get to the goal, the harder the foul. So I always tell people to play through the foul because victory is often closer than you realize. Well, having said all this, I'd like to share a story with you. I want to take you back to 2007. I was coaching at Indiana University as an assistant coach, hadn't even been there a full 9 months. We were getting ready to go off to the conference tournament. My mom and dad would come up and help babysit. I'm a single mom. My son was 9 at the time. My mom and dad would come up from Jacksonville, Florida, and they would babysit while we went away for 4 or 5 days or whatever it was to play in the tournament. Well, my mom, who was a banker, I always said she should have been a college professor because she had this PhD in lecturing me. Some of you have moms like that. Some of you are moms like that. Stop it. You're ruining your children. She had this way about her. She would always go, you know what I think you should do? And I would go, oh, Lord, here we go again. I always said she was going to, lecture me about finding some rich husband that was supposed to take care of me and, for the rest of my life, like we could find those at the Walmart, right, ladies? I'll take 2 on a rollback, as a matter of fact. Anyway, she would go off about, you know what I think you should do, but it wasn't that lecture. She says to me, you need to finish writing that book. I had been trying to write a book for years. Finish writing that book you've been working on because you're missing your calling. Get yourself on the speaker circuit so you can inspire people and then get yourself on Oprah. My mom loved herself some Oprah. Well, this story went on, and I was like, what? So left field, didn't think a whole lot about it. Fast forward, we go and we play in the tournament 4 or 5 days. We get back. Mom and dad head back to Jacksonville, Florida. And at that point, I didn't realize that would be the last lecture I would ever receive from my mother. She died suddenly of a heart attack soon after they returned to Jacksonville. And it was the hardest foul I had ever felt in my life. It was the hardest time of my life. Now I, as a single mom, had to pick up and go and take care of my father back in Jacksonville, Florida. He was turning 80 that year. It was the beginning of my caretaking story. One day I broke down in tears. I just shortly after I had uprooted and moved back from Bloomington, Indiana, just overwhelmed with tears, I heard this voice go, "You know what I think you should do? Finish writing that book, get yourself on the speaker circuit so you can inspire people, and then get yourself on Oprah." So when it came time to writing a book, all I knew about were fouls. And the first book was Play Through the Foul. And my first communication training business opened up as I helped others in their corporate workplace play through the foul. And I just became this book writing fool. And it seemed like every time I was in a situation of drama, somehow or other, I was learning what was necessary: the faith, the focus, and the fortitude, the focus on the goal and play through the foul and do these things that my mom had prophesied in my life. I share this only because words are powerful. They can hurt or they can help. What did yours do today? And I don't mean just the words you shared with others. What are you saying to yourself? I knew in order to make it through anything, my mind had to be the first thing that I got strong. Because fouls are situations, circumstances, technology, and people who can limit, hinder, threaten, alter, and discourage us from our desired goal. Fouls are those things that turn our lives upside down. Some fouls are flagrant. And when it came time to truly, truly being a caregiver, I learned this lesson in the worst possible way. You see, when my son, the only one I have, is 12 years old, he was outside playing football with the neighborhood kids, and he came running in the house screaming that suddenly his eyes had gone dark, and it was almost like he had gone blind, like he had a blackout, and flipped over the electrical box while he was trying to catch a pass from one of the neighborhood kids. I ended up taking my son to his pediatrician to figure out what was going on with these headaches and the eye blurry vision that he had been complaining about. And while there, I explained to her everything that was going on. She ended up saying, "Get yourself an MRI, take him in for an MRI." That MRI soon after revealed that my son had a very large brain tumor. It was pressing on his optic nerve and his pituitary gland. It's called a craniopharyngioma. Before long, I was standing in front of some neurosurgeon that said, "You're in an emergency situation with your son. You're going to have to make a decision. There's a good chance that if we do this surgery to remove the tumor, your son may die. There's also a good chance that even if we save his life, and we're going to do everything we can to save his life, there's a good chance that your son will be blind. And no matter what, if indeed your son lives, because of the positioning of the tumor and his pituitary gland, he's going to live a very difficult life without hormonal function. Everything will have to be placed in his body artificially so that he can maintain life. There will be certain situations that he may end up in the ER over emergencies, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Flagrant foul, not only for me, but I still had yet to explain this to my 12-year-old son. I took this picture in the hospital of Wolfson's Children's Center right before my son was about to go in to surgery, because quite honestly, I didn't know whether I would see him again. There's a lot more to this story, and it has been revealed to probably over 47 million views at this point on a Goldcast viral video. But I will simply share with you that he had that surgery, and 6 hours later, the surgeon came out, the neurosurgeon came out and explained to me that my son was alive and I could go in and see him. And it was at that moment, the happiest moment of my life. Friends and family had come all over and sat in the waiting room and prayed with us. And that's where faith really took off. And faith helped that craniopharyngioma indeed disappear. But the flagrant foul was that my son was blind. And I had no idea, no clue what to do to help my son Drew over this seemingly impossible task. They brought in, after many, many days in intensive care, he was finally moved out of that room into a normal room, and they brought in Tibbs, the seeing eye dog, I'll never forget, because in this picture, he seemed to be looking at me to tell me that things had just gotten rough. My caregiving scenario came in the midst of what I call having everyone on the outside think I was still this straight A student, passing through life, overcoming adversity, playing through the foul like a motivational speaker should. Truth was, is I was barely passing with D's. And sometimes in life, we all experience these. I just happen to be experiencing all of them at the same time. Divorce, death, disease, disability, displacement, because as soon as I got my son home from the hospital, I received word that we had 30 days to move out of our house we were renting. The owner had decided to sell it. I was just learning, helping my son learn how to walk again with a cane, let alone just get over all of the bullying and teasing and taunting that he received when he finally went back to school, and so many other problems medically that he had to overcome. You can only imagine the depression and anxiety and my desperation to do anything, to not feel like I was living in a home that looked like this. I wasn't. Well, sometimes I forgot to clean it, but I'm just saying, on the outside, I had it all together, and on the inside, I was slowly dying because I felt like there was no hope, and everything felt like complete dysfunction. And I'm sharing my story with you today because I know that there are many of you that might be struggling the same way. It's hard for a house to feel like a home when there's no hope. So I want you to find that hope, because life's biggest test is how you respond when you're blindsided by fouls. Most of us, especially when they first happen, look a little like this girl: take my ball and go home, quit fouling. I don't want to play this stupid game anymore. Talk about dropping F-bombs. The important reminder for the caregiver is that the world is full of suffering, but it's also full of the overcoming of it. And I invite you, when it comes to focus on that. Developing faith, focus, and fortitude actually started for me at Syracuse University. See, I came out of Fort Washington, Maryland, just outside of our nation's capital in Washington, D.C. And they put my name in the Washington Post, and they put it in the USA Today, and they said Vera Jones was a great basketball player. Here I was thinking I'm going to Syracuse University on a scholarship, and my poo-poo did not stink. Only to get up to Syracuse University and find out that my coach apparently did not read the USA Today or the Washington Post, because she sat me on the bench. The bench is where I learned to play through the foul. And I also learned an important acronym that I want to share with you today. You see, the biggest opportunity for growth is not when you're out there being the star of the game, thinking everything is going right, just the way you strategized it. No. Your biggest opportunity for growth is when you're on the bench. And in caregiving, there are many, many days that you wake up and you feel like your life is on the bench. So let me give you this acronym. Remember that the B stands for breathe. Maybe today's your day just to rest. We forget that part, how important it is, because we just have to do for others. And we just forget that even like in a basketball game, there's not a whole lot you can do if you don't say, hey, coach, sub me out. I'm a little bit winded here. Tag me in every opportunity you can. Be okay with being on the bench if it means you're getting opportunity to rest. The E stands for evaluate. You see, at Syracuse University, believe it or not, it wasn't when I was running around playing the game that I really, really understood it. It was those times that I was on the bench, quite honestly, sulking and pouting before I finally heard what the coach said, before I finally realized that if I really want to get through this game, I'm going to have to toughen up in some ways. I'm going to have to learn how to play defense. I'm going to have to really get my mind focused on what's right. And so you can evaluate while you're in this place of being on the bench, of how you can do things better. The N is an important one because it's about nurturing. And I didn't understand that while I was on the bench of my life with my son, or on the bench at Syracuse University, that I was learning patience. And I know it's a horrible thing and none of us really want to learn it, but how much stronger and how much better are we as individuals when we do? Because in patience is when we actually nurture hope. It's through new perspectives. When you're sitting on the bench and you say, man, I hope coach puts me in. I hope things get better. That hope is what keeps us going, which makes us know that we can continue to play the game. Another thing that happened was the seed. Yeah, in my pouting and moaning and groaning at Syracuse University, I also learned, you know what? Some days we're actually winning this game. It's not all about me, that there are other people who my encouragement from just cheering for others could lift their spirits, but it could also lift mine. And sometimes we do become very, very self-absorbed in our place, and the pity parties begin. And I had plenty pity parties with my son, but I was always amazed that when there was something I could say or do to help others, somehow that lifted my spirits too. And somehow I knew I was planting the seed of karma, that others would be there to cheer for me when I needed it too. The H stood for hunger, the resilience test. Because the truth of the matter is, no matter what, only one or two things are going to happen when you're on the bench of your life. Either A, you're going to quit, or B, you're going to dig down and you're going to find something, some grit, some fortitude to go on another day, to focus on the goal, what's most important in what you're doing as a caregiver. That hunger is your resilience test, and I pray that you pass it. One way to pass it, I decided, was with what I'm calling the chill pill. My own remedy here. I'm working with the CDC. After we get through COVID-19, I'm going to work on the CDC, taking on my new drug. And I'm even going to voice the commercial myself just to save money. But Big Pharma's where it's at. And I'm coming up with my own pill, and I'm calling it Spamensoin 5. Get balance with a regular dose of Spamensoin 5, your spiritual, emotional, intellectual, physical, social, environmental, and financial wellness. When you are looking for work-life balance, get that balance with the chill pill, Spamensoin 5. Side effects include happy mood swings, giggleitis, relaxaholic syndrome, I love you, uncontrollable smiling, hugatitis, and an urgency to get to the beach. Spamensoin 5. I want to leave you today with one of my favorite things to do anytime I talk to people. I have developed my own 7-realm wheel. It's actually an 8. It's based on 8 realms. But when we talk about work-life balance, because the hardest thing in caregiving I found was I still had to provide for my son. I still had to do meaningful work that actually gave me a meaningful paycheck of some sort to help me provide. And I realized that no matter what, just like in sport, if I'm not well, if I'm injured, I can't do any of it. So this is about you. I'm going to give you my Spamensoin 5 test. There are 8 realms of wellness, vocational being the 8th. Our ability to consistently achieve our best at work is dependent on our Spamensoin 5, the degree to which the rest of us is intact, right? So if you're looking for this, take out a pen and paper and do this with me real quick as we wrap up. I want you to take my wellness self-check. Let's talk about spiritual. On a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being the lowest, 10 being the highest, how much time do you make for spiritual? Quiet time, meditation. Do you pray? What are your beliefs and values? Think about those things. How often are you making time for that? 1 being the lowest, 10 being the highest. The next one is emotional. Do you regulate your stress? Are you getting proper rest? Do you know who and how to ask for help? Overall, emotionally, are you happy? Rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the highest. Intellectual, your knowledge, your creativity. Are you nurturing those new perspectives by reading? Heck, you can Google anything that you want to learn. Are you growing intellectually, even in the midst of being on the bench of your life? Physical. Man, this is the one everybody's score is kind of low in my age category. Your exercise, your nutrition, your medical, daily rest and activity. 10 being the highest, 1 being nope, definitely still on the bench in this one. I got a little middle that I'm hanging on to. Social, your support, your family, I call it friends and family. Do you have a mentor? Do you surround yourself with people who have shared hobbies, or maybe you're participating in a group, especially a self-help group? And if indeed, if you need emotional help or social help, can you seek out a counselor to do that for you? 10 being, yep, I'm high on that. 1 being, nope, In COVID, I got nothing. I'm staying at home all day, every day. Environmental, global, community, not just that, not just are you participating in those efforts, but just your personal space. Environmentally, when we live in clutter, it clutters our mind, it clutters our physical wellness, it clutters everything. So can you clean up? And if not, do you have somebody that can help you do it? You might feel a little bit better. And then the last one we all know, especially when you're a caretaker. I remember when the bills would come in for my son, the medical bills that I knew there was no way in the whole wide world I was ever going to be able to pay. And beyond that, I still had to figure out how to live within my means. And that's what it's about. It's not being rich. It's about being able to have enough to plan for the future and to be able to budget. How are you there? Rate yourself from 1 to 10. If you scored, add them all up. If you scored, get a calculator. If you're like me, get the calculator. Don't trust the old long division, long addition and multiple. Don't do it. 55 or above is thriving. 42 to 54, surviving. Under 42, get balanced with a regular dose of Spumenzone 5. I invite you to really, really take your wellness seriously. Sometimes we don't know because we don't take the time to assess. Something else you can do, that evaluation part of being on the bench. And while you're on the bench, just figure out how to passionately play your position. And I hope that you'll do that with faith, realizing that there is purpose in the pain. As I have discovered, my mom's words were indeed prophetic. And through my own pain, I can reach out and share and help other people. Focus on the goal and only the goal. There will be so many competing things for your attention. You have to decide what's most important and focus on that. And then fortitude to play through the fouls and to win. Remember the resilience test, your hunger. Either you're going to quit or you're going to keep going. I pray you keep going. Just drop some F-bombs. The fear, the fouls, and the failure, drop these. And remember, faith, focus, and fortitude is how you replace them and play through the foul. I thank you for having me. You can find me at Vera Jones on social media or just Vera Jones, depending on which social media you are. And always just go straight to the website, verasvoiceworks.com. I wish you the best, David's Refuge and Rescue. Thanks again for having me, and God bless you all.